Hey there, welcome to Pod and Deliver. Today we're going to be talking about ethnic studies, and specifically the governor of California, Governor Newsom, just signed a bill. It's titled AB 101. And this bill, it states that students in California will have to take an ethnic studies class to graduate. The classes need to start by 2025 and the first graduating class 2030. So this is new, Ruben. I just wanted to share that I actually was asked to teach this course this year. I was never, I never taught the class in the past. I'm a social studies teacher, so had to scramble pretty quick. They didn't have a textbook for us. They had some links for some materials. They definitely had 4 units they wanted us to cover: African American, Latinos, Asian American, Native American. Did I say them all? And then if we have time, LGBTQ, and a small unit on the individual. So that being said, it was a lot to take in starting this school year. With wow, there's a new course I'm expected to teach and effectively, and I have 2 courses of it. And how do I go about it? And I think one of my questions, Ruben, was, is this critical race theory? And if anybody out there wants to know what that is, it's this idea. There's this movement in the country where to teach courses where you're talking about different races and what I understand it is really being critical of Anglos, right? White people. And so that being said, I would have to say that I was never told to teach it a certain way or don't forget to talk bad about the white man or anything like that. But I definitely looked at this as a challenge, and I've been teaching it for the last couple of months now, and I've already hit a couple of units. And I think the way I'm handling it is a way that I hope to handle in the future is share about the positive pieces to each group. I'm sharing about the history. I'm sharing about the culture. And of course, every one of these groups has had some difficult times. And a lot of times it has been with Anglo, right? With white people, but not always. Sometimes it's with themselves, right? And so just to realize that, you know what? Man has been evil with each other. And if you go back in time, you'll see that man's always been pushing people off land. In Europe with the barbarians, even here in North America with the different Indian tribes pushing each other and gaining access. So right now it's not, Ruben, I'm not sure if you know this, but there's groups like Jewish and Palestinian groups, Arab community, who are unhappy because they were not included in these groups. And I think the state has pretty much said, you know what, if you want to add a subunit, you're able to do that. So that's kind of a way to doing it. Have you heard about these courses? I'm not sure if I've talked to you about this. Have I?
No, I mean, I don't know. My experience is a little different than yours. I'm at I guess you're saying a state mandate?
It's a state, no, yeah, because the governor signed it for all schools, for every school,
right,
starting 2025, and we already started this year.
Gotcha.
So we're ahead of the game, and I think
I haven't heard too much specifically about that. There have been some discussions in our department about, there's definitely an encouragement to teach books and literature from people of color.
Yeah.
That's an encouragement. It hasn't been mandated through our department, but I think the way I view it is, I think if you are a person who teaches language arts, that's what I teach, you're going to naturally teach people of color. You're going to, I think last year, I didn't do this year, but in 2020, I opened with Langston Hughes, just naturally. And there's so much good stuff out there that you want to include it. You should include it. Just the way my personality works, just my bias and just how I am. I don't like anybody telling me what to do. I'm just telling you, I don't like I'm not gonna behave well with others if my boss tells me you better teach this in X, Y, and you better teach that.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. So I'm just naturally I don't like that. But I would encourage teachers to look at broad cultures, broad things that because it's very useful. At the
Yeah.
same time, I'm not sure if I look at it quite like you, like the idea of the white man. You know, it's I've never heard somebody say, "Well, talk bad about the white man." I think it's because obviously I would never do that. I would never, talk ill of any group,
Sure.
whether it's black, obviously, whatever, white. We just reviewed a book that really goes deep on culture, race, kind of, if you look at it, immigration, and that is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Mm.
And, we invite everybody to look at that video. But I don't know. I guess
maybe I didn't make myself. Maybe I didn't make myself clear. It's not that. First off, my bosses aren't telling me talk bad about the white man, but I do have colleagues who are teaching the same class who have already kind of made reference to like, hey, you know what? We're talking about the difficulties these groups have had because of Anglos and whites. I'm like, that's not where I would want to go. And I'm glad that I have the freedom right now. Maybe someday I won't have the freedom though. That's what scares me, that I have the freedom to say, you know what, I'm going to take this the way I want to take it, which is let's look at the culture. Let's look at the history. Let's look at what they have brought to America and added and given and even before Europeans came into this continent. And so that's how I'm looking at it. I won't look forward to the day where someone says, well, make sure you let the kids know that,
I would say you probably have a bigger challenge
mm-hmm.
or a different challenge than I do, in the sense that now if we locate the argument over a specific issue, like for example, Christopher Columbus.
Good. Yeah.
I would, the way I would do it is I would say, okay, Sopranos is my favorite TV show. So they had a whole episode about this.
Oh, really?
There's real anger among Italians in this episode, among Italians, of just wiping out Christopher Columbus. They took it as an assault on their culture and their right?
Yeah.
So if I were and I would invite, I guess, an admin to come in. If I were to teach that concept, I would give an argument pro and con, because that makes the students stronger anyway, to argue their position and to reinforce it by arguing it. But to just say, okay, we're just going to call this guy a bad figure on the landscape, and that's it.
An evil person.
Kind of weak.
Yeah, and I think you make the good point of let's look at both sides. And I try to do that with my students quite a bit, with giving them a prompt that says, hey, argue for this side, or take a look at their side, this other group, right? and see that there's different ways of looking at a situation. And you brought up a good one regarding Columbus Day. Different people look at it differently, and to say, well, I know what's right, and this is, Columbus was just totally off and evil and wrong. Wait a minute. I mean, first off, we're not 1692, right? Or 1492. I'm sorry. 1492.
I think if I were you, and if I heard, like, if I'm you, and if I heard some mandate on top saying you have to teach that he was a evil figure, to me, that's equivalent to me of somebody telling me you have to teach this book. I'm like, what?
Oh, no. Look at, and of course Columbus wasn't perfect, and of course there are things they did were atrocious, but the point is that, hey, let the kids figure that out. Let them look into it. Let them say, oh, wait a minute, there's different layers here. And what were the Native Americans doing before that? And how are they treating one another? And so, yeah, you make the good argument that, hey, let the kids, give them some questions for them to ponder and to use their critical thinking skills, right? So, yeah, this is new, and I think as time goes, they're going to give us more information. Like I shared before, there's no textbook. There's just kind of like, go for it, teachers. And we're going for it right now, but I think there'll be a time where they'll say, hey, we have a textbook for you now. Then that's when I'll go, whoa, what's in this textbook? I have a hard time putting blame on a certain group of people when knowing that all groups have done some ugly stuff to one another, and to just put one aside.
Just to push back on that for a moment, I could see somebody telling you in response to what you just said, saying, well, then you're just sort of letting a particular group off the hook because everybody, you see, I could see somebody trying to really attack that argument.
Well, they can.
Are you ready for that?
They have why not? I mean, I have that. I could talk about anything regarding this topic, regarding them saying, hey, you're letting them off the hook. And I'm saying, no, I'm not. Let's talk about this group for a moment, but there's other groups too. Let's talk about these. Don't forget about these other groups. My point is let's talk about these other ones. Yeah.
But I'm just being devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Devil's advocate.
You are the devil. Oh, go ahead.
What the idea, for example, what's different if I were sitting here, if you were sitting there saying the Nazis had a Holocaust, obviously. Mm-hmm. Jews were the primary focus of that, but there were other groups, and this is a ghastly situation. I'm sure you've taught this before. You've taught this unit, right?
Sure.
And I were to say, well, why are you bringing that up? There's been a lot of bad groups.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say let's look at the Nazis. Let's look at, and it's funny that you mentioned that because in psychology, there's this study, have you heard of the Stanford experiment, where these young people were put into cells and they were treated poorly by the jailers, right, or their people running the jail, and the professors went too far in this experiment because they started getting real and saying, but the whole point of it was, hey, why do jailers get ugly with their prisoners? And so how I would approach it with the Nazis, saying, hey, yeah, you know what, there's a lot of ugliness, but a lot of times it's a little psychological too. How would you behave if you were a Nazi? I mean, you're told to treat Jews this way. You might find yourself doing that.
I'm responding to what you said prior about how, well, yeah, I know because Columbus and some of these explorers did wrong. Yeah. But everybody, there's a lot of evil in the world.
Well, I wouldn't just throw that whole blanket.
If you were teaching a Nazi unit and I sat and I gave you that exact same argument, saying, why are you talking about the Nazis being bad? There's a lot of evil in the world. Every group treated evil. You get what I'm saying?
But my point is this, is that I would still, it's not that I wouldn't talk about the wrong that Anglos have done. That's not my point. My point is I would include it, but I would include it all as in, there's other groups besides that group, and it's just not one group that does bad to one another. Latinos have done ugly things to African Americans. African Americans have done ugly things to Asians. I would include all those groups doing ugliness because my whole point is man is ugly, and we do ugly stuff to one another. And so that's how I would approach it.
I get your argument, but I also see somebody really trying to get underneath.
Oh yeah, they're gonna want it because hey, it's a white man. Yes. I mean, if we look at our history, there's been more of that. Sure.
I think of the principle of the argument. I can see somebody trying to have a field day with the principle that you're setting up. I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying the idea of, well, it would be hard for me to teach against any atrocity. Sure. But like if I'm teaching about the Armenian Holocaust perpetrated by the Turks, with that same idea.
But I think you misunderstand. I wouldn't say about this. No, I think you misunderstand. I wouldn't get around the atrocity. I would, if for example, the Americans, when they put Native Americans to reservations, I'm not going to skip over that. That was horrible. That was definitely Americans who did that. I'm not going to skip that. What I'm trying to say is that I'm including it all. That's all I'm saying. Yes, these white groups have done some ugly things, and it's documented. How about slavery? My God, that was awful.
Okay, so sounds like you have a lot of teaching to do. You're talking about every single atrocity ever known to man, and you're teaching it all.
No, that wasn't what well, I'm going to go from one atrocity to another. And you know what? All the atrocities are different. That's my point too, is that, you know what? Everyone's different. And yes, sometimes it's white people who do it. Sometimes it's their own groups. But be honest. Talk about every situation. And I think maybe that is my main point. Is that's not a whole blanket. It's not the same enemy all the time. It's not the same situation all the time. So I think that's just one way to look at it.
This week I was showing a clip from the movie The Hate U Give, and we read some of the books, and it's about a police shooting. But in the story, there's also a gang killing. And I pointed out to the class that it seems that the left is interested. If I were to paint a picture of what's going on between the right and the left, what war is going on politically, it seems to me that the left is concerned with police violence and the right is concerned with gang violence. But I submitted to my class that we should probably be concerned with both. And so that was my take on it. I think it's my job to paint an accurate picture of both sides and not to caricature either side. And so I think that I think the students thought I depicted it pretty fairly, and there was no objections. So
I think we both could agree on that. I think you handled that right. I mean, look at both sides. I think that's what I tried to do that with my kids too. I wanted to paint both sides and let them decide, or at least say, hey, wait a minute, it's a little complicated. Sometimes, you know what, it isn't, it's not more, it's more than what we see. So let's do more investigation. Let's do a little more reading. That's what I hope my kids do, is just do a lot more reading on this topics. And I'll tell them, hey, you guys have your computers there. You guys could do some investigation yourself.
Okay. Very good. I forgot who opened this, you or me.
I did. So let me say thank you guys for, I'll close it. Thank you for being with us this evening. And we hope to see you soon. And bye-bye.